At the end of the day, he decides to go because he's Superman. Hey guys, welcome to another graphic novel review. Today we'll be talking about Superman Up in the Sky, written by Tom King and illustrated by Andy Kubert. And I love Tom King. I especially followed his run on Batman, and I loved what he did for. I think he went on for 85 issues on Batman, and I loved what he did for about 60 of those issues, so that was a pretty good run, even though his style went over the story by the end of his run. It was still a beautiful, very good run, and I loved reading it. And I was always very excited to see what he would do with Superman. And his Superman story in Action Comics 1000 was actually my favorite amongst the other stories in that book. So I was very excited when I heard about Superman Up in the Sky. But unfortunately, this book was initially released as a Walmart exclusive. Each issue was part of a 100-page Walmart Giant line, which was basically DC's attempt to get their comics in front of mass-market retail customers to expand their readership. These books were anthology collections. They featured 4 issues in a book, and only some of the stories were actually continuous arcs. One of them was Superman Up in the Sky, and as far as I know, the only other one was Brian Michael Bendis' Batman story called Batman Universe. So these arcs were buried within these giant books, and I think in order to fit within the 4 one-shot comics in one book concept, Mr. King designed all his issues to serve both as an overarching storyline and as a standalone. And apparently even that wasn't enough of a disjointed structure, because the issues or parts in this book, if you will, are divided into 12 pages each. I hated that. I don't think not Tom King, any writer can actually establish a story and go where they want to go in only 12 pages when they're hindered by this fragmented type of storytelling, which requires them to bring somewhat of a fresh start every single issue. This is very apparent in the book, and it suffers because of it. Just when you think the story is actually going somewhere, they apply the brakes and then take a beat and then come back. I mean, if this story was written solely as a graphic novel, a whole graphic novel, I don't know, 144 pages I think, or, just the regular comics format that we're used to, a regular comics arc, its rating in my mind would be much higher than what it is right now. So let's talk about the character designs first. I usually like Andy Kubert's work, and he's also great here. There's a very kinetic quality to his style. There's always movement. There isn't much stillness, even for the panels that there aren't much action in it. It's a very dynamic art, but character designs themselves sometimes go too far with the cartoony aspect. For instance, although here Superman looks amazing, his face actually looks like Superman. If you compare that image to this one, what I'm trying to say is there is an inconsistency between not even different issues or not even different parts, but different pages within the same story actually. But overall it doesn't deter from the story itself. Constant breaks does that much more than the art, but it's not the best of Andy Kubert. So let's briefly talk about the story itself. A child is kidnapped into deep space, and Superman is basically faced with a dilemma. He wants to go into deep space and find the girl and bring her back, but at the same time, that girl is just one person, and he has a world full of people that need him every single day. But at the end of the day, he decides to go because he's Superman. And we see this theme throughout the book. The theme of that's not supposed to happen, but Superman. So as he looks for the girl, he has some adventures in deep space. Some of those adventures are pretty good. Some of them are silly, but not in the vein of nonsensical, but more like in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy. But there are a few moments in this book, if you're a Superman fan, makes the whole experience worth it. So if you actually adjust your expectations of Tom King and Andy Kubert when picking up this book, I think you'll like it. Now, clearly I'm reviewing this as a graphic novel. I imagine if one were to read this book in the pace that it's come out, weekly or monthly, because that type of consumption is less focused, one would think that you might like it more. But I think if it was me, I wouldn't finish it that way, because amount of content that they give you in one part is not enough to hook you up and wait for however long you need to wait for the next one. Now, if by chance you come across there are 2 or 3 great parts in this book, as I mentioned, that makes the whole book worth it. If you come across those parts, that's great, you want to keep reading it. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is if you want to experience this book, please pick it up and read it at once. And if in the beginning you're discouraged, don't give up, because this book has some great Tom King writing that makes up for the basically boring or irrelevant parts contained within it. Alright guys, thanks for watching and see you on the next one.